Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica. On this week's episode, we're taking a look at Castlevania Chronicles for the PlayStation 1, which is a remake of the Sharp X68000 Untitled Dracula, which in turn is a remake of the NES original Castlevania game. So this is a third generation remake, and it is an absolutely incredible game. You see at the beginning there, we were able to pick which sound module we wanted to use, and the X68000 had 3 different versions of the soundtrack. You had the general FM music, and then 2 different Roland MIDI arrangements. We went with the Roland GS, which is an extension of the MIDI spec, so we have the best soundtrack technically you can get. They are all the same songs, same arrangements, except they just have different instruments involved in them. But now that we're in the castle here, this game looks amazing. Now, I loved the NES original. I had it when it came out as a kid. I think I got it for Christmas. I don't know if I ever beat it back then, but I 100% loved the game. And this, as far as a remake, is absolutely outstanding. I know we completely tore apart Dracula X, and, well, that was fun doing it, but this is the type of Castlevania game that I absolutely love. It's the original 16-bit format before Symphony of the Night came out, and while that is an incredible game, obviously Castlevania did start in the super challenging, side-scrolling kind of action platformer vein, and Castlevania Chronicles gives us so much of that here. So basically what they remade, the entire game is remade with original new graphics, but you have different stages, a little expansion of the game itself. You have entirely new artwork, new music arrangements, but the core mechanic is still just Castlevania. So you see a lot of the same enemies. All the sprites have been redone completely as well. But as far as this game compared to the X68000 version, the other nice thing is that while this game may have gotten expensive, I think maybe you're going to pay $80 for something like this now, to get a Sharp X68000 and this game to play is going to put you in like $1,500 to $2,000 range, because X68000s are extremely expensive, they're extremely difficult to deal with, and generally if you're ordering one, it's going to come from Japan, so the shipping is going to just really beat you up as well. So this is definitely the best way to play this game, in my opinion. So now we're on to the first boss, the Bat, and you definitely remember that from the original Castlevania, and you get some great boss music here as well. And that's what's so great about this game, is it kind of brings the original Castlevania into a new generation and modernizes it in a way where it's still the same game and it's still super enjoyable, yet it allows you to enjoy it just a little bit more than having to hook up an NES and play that original cartridge. You will see that on some of the hits there isn't any knockback, and they did remove that from the original, and the game is a little bit easier. You don't take as much damage to your health bar when you get hit, and I think those are actually good quality of life improvements over the original. This game is still definitely challenging, but it isn't maddeningly so at spots, and that was a complaint I had when I was playing Dracula X, is that the game seemed to want to be almost unfair in how you played it. Now, there are kind of boring parts like this right here. You need to beat these slime walls, and they're new, and all you do is whip them. If you touch them, you don't get damaged, nothing happens. So it's not sure what they were going with in that respect, and there are a few bits of this game where things don't perfectly make sense, but it's really minimal and it doesn't affect your overall experience whatsoever. I also do love all the parallax scrolling you get in the background. You're looking at 4 different layers going by, and that's something that gives the image so much depth. We're in a cavern right now, and it really looks like it goes on for miles upon end, and you even get some of the enemies flying in the background as well. Enemies that are going to show up soon, so you even get a little preview of what you're looking at enemy-wise coming up very shortly. So the nice thing about this game too is that you can pick up the PlayStation 1 original, but it is available on the PlayStation Network as well, so you can download this for quite cheaply and just go ahead and play it to your heart's content. I definitely recommend you pick it up in some format though. This is one of those lesser known and lesser talked about Castlevania games, and I think it's absolutely outstanding and deserves to be played by everyone. I would recommend playing this over the NES original. It's fun to see where Castlevania as a series started and came from, but this is definitely a much more playable version of the game. Now, this water stage absolutely drives me nuts. I died about 10 times where I was able to succeed on here. There's a lot of quick jumps, and while generally they are very easy to make, you need to be really good on your timing for them, and that's something I love about Chronicles and hated about Dracula X, where the jumps in this game feel very fair. And Dracula X, they almost seem pixel perfect. So there's not as many cheap deaths in this game, and you will see that I have this bone skeleton right here, dragon, that I have to fight. And while he does take some damage out of me, and there are some elements of that rotating platform, you're not getting bounced around so much or juggled around so much that you're going to get hit right off that platform due to one mistake. And that's something that I think is great about this game, is that it's forgiving enough that you're able to make progress, but challenging enough that it isn't a breeze. And in between each stage, you get these fun little map transitions where you're just walking to the next stage. Kind of remind me a little bit about the Ghouls and Goblins series where you see the different levels. What I'm going to let you do is just watch a little bit of the gameplay. I absolutely love this musical soundtrack, so I want you to hear it. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the game. I do love this death here, where you just slide off the platform and completely end up suspended in midair. There's a couple funny little errors like that in the game, some glitches that are just visual, where you just end up suspended in air. Then you get these great elements like mud women. Now generally Castlevania always has mud meta, but you can definitely tell if you look at the chest area that we're dealing with some mud ladies on this one. That's a fun little change, just something to notice. But now that we're getting into the next stage, I just can't say enough how much I love this soundtrack. It's kind of jazzy. It's got that Castlevania feel, but with a little bit something extra going on. And I think that's one of the most memorable things about this game is just how well it sounds. Now you get these little ice elements and your character is going to slide around a bit. It doesn't make it too difficult, but it gives you a little extra challenge. And these spikes here are a giant pain. You can accidentally touch them and end up dying, even though you don't die until you actually connect with the surface. What you really need to do is just jump here, duck, and wait for it. And that's maybe be considered a cheap death, but I don't really think so. I kind of actually just laughed about that one, and it was something that was very easy to learn not to do, compared to some of the other Castlevania games where you can die, 3, 4, 5 times in the same area just trying to get through that particular challenge. So it's just kind of like a little wink and a nod, like, oh, we got you on that one. I do like all the destructible environments as well. Unfortunately, you let out flea men, and they are still the worst enemy in Castlevania. They're so notorious for their movement. It's completely unpredictable. And then you just get a little Nosferatu in the back. So that's our first look at a Dracula. It's not the Dracula of the game, but it's just a little nod to where the vampire lore came from in the Castlevania series. And now we have another boss. I like the boss music. It takes a little bit to load compared to the X68000 version, but it's only like 5 or 6 minutes. But you get these nice ice pillars coming up, and you get a little more verticality to your fight. Now, if I had brought the axe sub-weapon in, I would have had a lot easier of a chance doing this, but I did die, and unfortunately I lost my sub-weapons, and that's just something you deal with in the Castlevania series. But I love all the animations on the sprites. His robe is flowing, everything looks like it's in great motion, and that's something that's a lot of fun in the game, that each character, whether it's a minor enemy like a skeleton or a boss character, has all these great frames of animation and a lot of love put into them. But there you go. We've beaten the boss, and we're on to the next stage. I'll let you watch a little bit more gameplay because I do want to let you hear the next part of the soundtrack, and I'll come back to close out the video. Otherwise, enjoy the music coming up. This rendition of Bloody Tears is my favorite of all the different versions of that song that they have ever done in the Castlevania series, and we get a fun little nod to the song coming up here on the statue. This is the first and I think only game in which there's actually something crying bloody tears. Obviously that's the name of the track, but it's not something visually that you get to see much, but you will see when we come up here that the face of the statue has a nice little animation of a couple bloody teardrops raining down and hitting that platform. And I like how one teardrop actually hits the platform and the other falls through, and there's animations for each. This game had a lot of love and attention put into it, and I absolutely love that about the game. I feel like the creators were absolutely 110% behind making this the best version of the original Castlevania they possibly could. That was obviously a big complaint I had in my Dracula X commentary, is that it didn't really feel like the people making the game actually cared to make a good game. This game I can't recommend highly enough. Absolutely, no matter how you get it, if it's on the X68000, if it's the PlayStation 1 version, if you emulate it, or if you download it on the PlayStation Network, buy the game. And I got stuck on Medusa. I didn't actually want to show you the rest of the game. I did get past her, but I did just kind of stop it here because you should definitely experience this game for yourself. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. We'll have an episode on Friday. We'll be back next Tuesday with another episode in the Dracula series. Short of that, hit that like, subscribe button. But have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.